Welcome home, brave adventurers. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and if you live in the UK, you might have noticed that Miniature Wargames is celebrating their 500th issue. This £6.99 publication demonstrates and discusses a variety of different wargame miniatures and miniature wargames. This particular issue, which was bagged when it was sent to me, comes with a sprue of werewolf parts. This is enough to build 4 werewolves of my very own, and these are about as highly detailed as you can expect. Copyright Wargames Atlantic 2024. 500 is a pretty big milestone, and it's interesting to me that they chose werewolves as the central theme for their December issue. Our other cover stories include Fangorn's Edge, using Rohirrim to beat orcs with Oathmark rules, Lysander Down, World War II search in a forest for the French resistance, and Get Out of Dodge, Wild West gunslinging action in Dodge City. The reverse side of this magazine really does interest me, with the classic fantasy battles tag, the return of 10mm mass battle on a grand scale. Time for me to go check out wargamesatlantic.com and see what that's all about, but the reason that this is being featured on this channel at all is because this is, I believe, markedly the first time in 30 years that we have any sort of publication of a, let's call it quasi-official, HeroQuest quest, built by Conrad Kinch, 1815. That's right, Conrad Kinch developed a quest that is published within the pages of this physical magazine, and I'm not sure this has been done any time at any point in the last 30 years. I want to thank Conrad Kinch, as well as the editor of Miniature Wargames, who I believe is this fellow right here, John Treadaway, for sending me this issue along with the included sprue at my request to cover the HeroQuest content within. And congratulations to Miniature Wargames for their 41 years and 500th issue of this esteemed magazine. Interestingly enough, although the HeroQuest quest and details take up 5 pages of this 500th issue, it's not featured anywhere on the cover, and in my humble opinion, it very much should have been. There were a lot of people requesting what this magazine was, where to get it, how to get it, on the Old Inn Facebook group when I saw this shared. This custom HeroQuest quest may very well be the thing that introduces a lot of new overseas subscribers to Miniature Wargames. But I digress. Let us move forward and check out Howl of the Werewolf, a scenario for HeroQuest. Words and pictures by Conrad Kinch. Mr. Kinch hits the ground running on all fours with this lupine escapade, plus some other thoughts on gaming with youngsters. Deep inside another dimension, face battling barbarians and evil magic on a quest for adventure in a maze of monsters. This is HeroQuest, the fantasy adventure game where winning means mastering the arts of combat and magic. Once you get into it, you'll never be the same. HeroQuest. Now there's a name to conjure with. While I didn't enter the hobby through Games Workshop, being one of probably the last generation that grew up with Donald Featherstone, Airfix figures, and the Sandhurst Book of Wargames by Paddy Griffith, I loved HeroQuest. Mr. Kinch starts this article. And so we get a lovely retrospective of how this gentleman was introduced to the game and how his interest in it has been able to endure over the decades. But I do want to call attention to this lovely photograph. Sophia the Sorceress and Balin the Dwarf face the curse of the werewolf in the castle chapel. Obviously, we have some classic miniatures being used here to represent these heroes and this villain, and we are using the classic edition of the board as well as the classic furniture. There is not a hint of Avalon Hill's HeroQuest anywhere in this introductory image. And as we continue on through the pages of this particular quest, we see that it is indeed mired in Games Workshop classic goodness. The homebrew components are all 28mm friendly, coming from Warhammer or Talisman friendly properties, and the map actually seems to be made in a program other than HQuest Builder. The quest Howl of the Werewolf is a quest for heroes aged 7+, and the introduction goes as thus. In days gone by, the great Bretonnian knight Jonathan Dupes de Sud, having fallen from favor in his own country, pledged allegiance to the emperor. A mighty warrior and great knight, he defeated a host of chaos warriors, orcs and goblins, led by the chaos sorcerer Wulfen, and built a great castle on the spot. Castle Diane, named for his lady love, has been a bulwark against evil ever since. Terrible news has come from the border, however. Sir Jonathan's descendant, the current Lady Diane, the young mistress of the castle, writes that she is under attack, and Mentor has sent you to her aid. As you reach the castle, you see smoke rising from the battlements and hear the cries of orcs and the clash of arms from inside the gate. The attack has already begun. Now, I probably could have given this disclaimer a little bit earlier, but it is at this point I wish to disclaim that this video will contain spoilers for the quest, and indeed quests maybe, because there are actually 4 quests in this lineup. The scenario is played with the rules as they were published in UK in 1989. The author states here there's absolutely no reason you can't play this quest with a copy of the more recent Hasbro edition of the game, but that edition uses the American rules, so be aware it might be a little bit more difficult, because of course the UK monsters all have just 1 body point, whereas the US monsters classically had more. And indeed, the global contemporary version of HeroQuest uses the classic American rule set. That said, given the fact that I aimed this at 2 7-year-old players, says the author, this quest is a little on the easy side and is made to be played in a less adversarial manner than the usual game. Just an interjection here, this is the way that I think HeroQuest is supposed to be played anyway. Less adversarial, more fun. Make the heroes sweat. Indeed, bump off a couple of them during the course of an adventure if you must, but keep the game going. Play how you want though, I'm not gatekeeping. It takes all kinds. But if you're playing at my table, that's what I'm doing, as more cars are gone. Conrad makes a great point here. That's not to say that when we play the kids are guaranteed to win. There's no point in playing games with them if they can't lose, and there have been tears before bedtime when heroes have bitten off more than they can chew, but I don't go out of my way to hammer them. Yeah, sometimes you send that goblin up to attack the barbarian, and the goblin rolls 2 skulls while the barbarian loses his last 2 body points in a failed defense. It happens. One thing I would like to point out here from the article is the ticking clock section. HeroQuest is a roll and move game, and this can prove frustrating at times because the players can be tempted to dawdle. I found this a real problem when playing with my kids because they can get paralyzed by their options and get anxious about making any sort of decision. I've gotten around this by enforcing a 1-hour time limit on games. I set up a 1-hour timer on my phone, which they can see counting down, and that keeps them motivated. If the hero players have not completed the quest by the timer runs out, Lady Diane is lost, and they will have to try again. You'll note that there are actually 2 maps presented here, with 4 to download, says the editor, and that's because the board represents the ground and first floor of Castle Diane, which has been overrun by orcs, and here they are using the Classical Games Workshop non-HeroQuest spelling, ORK, goblins and chaos warriors, and is on fire. The blacked out areas of the map are not in play because they are on fire and are blocked off by falling masonry. The falling rock traps scattered around the map represent falling masonry and beams and such. Usually you don't get this extent of flavor text when you are playing a HeroQuest quest, but this helps to really set the mood and tell you why you are limited to where you are in the quest. Conrad specifies that you do not need 2 copies of the board to play. You do not need 2 copies of the board to play. I suppose you could play it that way if you do have 2 boards available, but we played it with 1. The heroes will have to make it to the staircase in the keep and climb up to the first floor. Once a figure has landed on the staircase, they are taken off the board and are out of play until the last hero has landed on the staircase tile and may not go back down. Once the last hero lands on the staircase tile, the stairs collapse. Clear the board and set up the first floor. This is a description keyed to the maps, all versions of which are downloadable. The heroes enter here in room A. Actually, corridor A, or I suppose door A. The first hero places his figures on A, the next hero is placed adjacent and in line of sight to that hero, and so on until all heroes are placed. A dying man at arms lies at their feet. My lords, you must save Lady Diane. The Chaos Wizard Volfin has laid the curse of the werewolf upon our castle. His minions are inside the walls. Please hurry. You must rescue Lady Diane and destroy the werewolf. I don't know where my lady is, though. Before he expires, he explains the layout of the castle. Give the heroes map 1. There are a lot of quest notes here. The interesting features of this particular quest include a pantry. There's enough food here that the heroes can eat once each, restoring 1 body point. A great hall, wherein a dying soldier tells the heroes, "It was terrible. The werewolf cannot be harmed by normal weapons." Blech. The great hall, where there was a space over the fireplace where a great sword once hung. Environmental storytelling, my favorite. The guard room, where the heroes will find a spear. The storeroom, where heroes can find 1 silver knife, and a place where you can get map 2. I don't want to spoil the surprise about the werewolf and the twist ending in the quest, so I'll stop here, but I will show you. Photograph here taken of 3D printed female versions of the classic HeroQuest heroes created by Frank Turfler, a modular variant Femir for 3D printing by Frank Turfler. And the author has linked to resources such as Yieldin, HeroQuest Builder or HQuest Builder, and Frank Turfler's website at Cults3D. Another shot of Sophia the Sorceress and Balin the Dwarf facing a terrifying foe in the castle chapel. It's very interesting that this adventure posits that there is a sorceress when there is not an official sorceress in HeroQuest, so this must be a homebrew edition. And of course, Conrad does say that they play with homebrew rules. Of note, the werewolf in the pictures presented here is not the werewolf on the sprue, or rather any of the 4 werewolves on the sprue. That's right, in building the werewolves that come with Miniature Wargames issue 500, you won't quite get this result. I don't know exactly where this werewolf is from, and perhaps one of you out there can identify it. Place it in its proper Games Workshop category if indeed that's where it's from. I want to share with you the link to download the scenario maps, and I hope that this QR code will work. So you should be able to download all 4 of the scenario maps by scanning that QR code. As for me, I'm going to keep this sprue and this magazine handy, and hopefully in the future I'll be able to play this quest, perhaps using a solo rule set, since we all know the worst thing about HeroQuest is not having people to play it with. But all in all, this is a really cool issue of this magazine, and for $6.99 GBP, I think I could definitely see value in a subscription where, you know, subscriptions are always significantly, like very much so cheaper than having to buy each individual issue month after month. I used to read a lot of magazines when I was a kid. I went to the store and bought all kinds of video game magazines. And I read Comics Monthly, all kinds of different series, and it was always heartbreaking whenever I'd go to the gas station or the local comic store when we finally got one and found out that they had sold out of that month's issue, leaving me without context whenever I were to pick up the story a month later. Included in the magazine also is an article written by Robert Piepenbrink about the Partisan 2024 show. I can only imagine that shows like this go on throughout the year, so every issue is probably jam-packed with photos and information about these different conventions. And as you've seen, there are plenty of homebrew opportunities to be submitted, painting tips and crafting tips, advertisements, which, to be completely honest, I like advertisements in magazines because they make me aware of things that I didn't know about before. They're usually pretty high quality or very interesting. And something I think would appeal to me very much, a series called Command Decision, which usually aims to offer a series of playable options in a timeless military scenario. It's designed so you can read the situation and figure out your own command decisions if you were leading the troops on the ground. You can either work through the various options or use the mechanics to create the precise circumstances of the tabletop engagement. The scenarios may have particular historical themes and settings, but you can easily adapt the mechanics to suit your own preferences and collections. This is the kind of thing that I've strayed away from, knowing that these are the sharp hooks, the barbs that may pierce me and drag me tumultuously into wargaming proper, which would just be a travesty because, again, nobody to play it with. I've been Ash. This has been HeroQuest, and I thank you all very much for watching. Please comment anything you like down below, and I'll see you in the next exciting adventure. Until then, please support Miniature Wargames and Conrad Kinch for having a publication in a physical magazine wherein he has submitted a HeroQuest quest, especially in the classic style. You know, it's not too late for somebody out there to submit the very first Avalon Hill-styled HeroQuest quest to a magazine, so maybe you guys should get on that. And when you do, I'll be there to cover it. Until next time, bye for now.